Make sure site noogadio.com. We're on YouTube as well. What else? No, I think that's about it. 92.7 FM. This is Clutch with Keon Rose. I have a lot to talk to you about because we're pretty much in basketball times, but we're never going to be that far away from football. And so I have a list of things because it is Valentine's Day, and we all know who my Valentine is. It's college football. Don't you listen to the show? So I have things that I love about college football. I have something that I love about almost every SEC school. There's one SEC school that I shall name later, but I couldn't think of a single nice thing to say about them. Not one single thing that I loved. I wonder who it could be. No, my love affair with Georgia is very well documented. I do like that school a lot. But there is one school. I tried my hardest to find a nice thing to say. I don't know. Couldn't find. So we'll figure out what that is. But I'd like to start college basketball talking about Trae Young because the coverage of college basketball is fascinating to me, especially over at the Four Letter Network, where if you watch it, what you learn is that they find one person or one team to be obsessed with, and they're the story all the time. Right? Like Trae Young is the story. And he's a very good basketball player, right? He's got incredible court vision. He's quick and speedy. But he's not going to be a top-tier NBA talent. Well, we know this, right? We can see this one, right? Like, he's great. He is averaging about 29 points a game. I'm not suggesting, by the way, by any stretch of the imagination, that Trae Young isn't good. What I am saying is that Trae Young isn't the future of sports, and I don't care how much LeBron likes him, and LeBron seems to love Trae Young a lot. Trae Young is not the future of basketball. He's not the future of sports. I mean, he's a very good player. I think he could probably stand to stay in school a little bit longer because he's small. His frame is small. I think that that's the kind of person that probably should put on a little bit more weight before you try and run into the NBA, because he's going to get pushed around. I mean, that guy's going to get beaten up a lot. And I don't know if we're going to see the best version of him in the NBA, which we see often, where a guy is actually really great in college. He goes to the NBA, and we just don't see the best version of that guy in the NBA. I mean, a good example of that would be Jimmer Fredette, who could shoot the lights out in college, but for whatever reason can't knock down a bucket in the NBA, can't find a way to get open, can't create his own shot, doesn't have any handles. That is a guy that gets exposed in the NBA in a very different way, because that is a particularly different sport, and not all skill sets translate. And simply because you have a ton of court vision doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be the next big thing. And I think we fell for that. We did with Lonzo. Lonzo's got a ton of court vision. His basketball IQ is through the roof. But they need to move a McDonald's into Lonzo's house. He's if you sneeze, you blow him away. Lonzo doesn't weigh anything right now. And maybe with some strength, that would change. Also, he has a broken jumper. That is right up there with one of the ugliest jump shots I have ever seen in my life. His jumper is broken on a fundamental level. And so I don't know if Lonzo can overcome those things, but we hyped up Lonzo because of what he was able to do distributing the basketball. The fact that he's able to see 2 or 3 steps ahead of the defense in making certain passes. And he's got that ability. But if he doesn't add more to his game than just that, he's going to vanish. We're going to forget about Lonzo Ball. I see a lot of that with Trae Young, except Trae Young is even smaller than Lonzo. Right now, he's a better shooter, and I think that that's going to help. But he's smaller. Being small doesn't help you defensively. Just ask Isaiah Thomas in the NBA. Isaiah Thomas is a horrible defender, but he's not a horrible defender because he doesn't try. He's a horrible defender because he's 5'10". He's average height for your typical American man in a league where the average height is like 6'5". There's no there's no threshold you can cross there to be better after that. You're just too small. And we've had small players succeed in the league before. Muggsy Bogues comes to mind. But gosh, is that guy not a rarity? That guy is not the norm, right? We treat Steph Curry like he's small. Steph Curry is 6'3". He's small for an NBA player. He's not small. Steph Curry's taller than most of you. So when I look at all of that, I go, yeah, no, I don't see the Trae Young thing the way everybody sees it. I'm enjoying his college career. If he goes to the NBA, I'm sure he'll do fine. But I wouldn't use a high draft pick on Trae Young. And Trae Young is getting Player of the Year considerations, and I think rightly so. But I'm not even sure Trae Young from week to week is the best player in the Big 12, right? I think Big Mo Bamba from Texas, he won Big 12 Player of the Week last week. I mean, you're just looking at a league over there in the Big 12 that's just loaded with talent. And the SEC is loaded with talent as well. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. Some SEC players that could possibly be high first round, potentially impactful draft picks in the NBA. But I'm not feeling all the love for Trae Young. I see him. I see what he's capable of. I enjoy what I see from him. But I also see that if you think that Trae Young is the guy that you draft and he covers up all the flaws in your team, he fixes everything, I think you're mistaken. I do. And just because he's got a ringing endorsement from LeBron that doesn't move the needle for me at all. But the fact that ESPN's decided that Trae Young is the guy of the year, right? Like, we're just going to cover Trae Young, and you go to the college basketball page on that website. Trae Young is the story. He's like the top 6 stories that they have. You really don't write about anything else? There's no other teams in basketball? Okay, sure. Go for it then. You're listening to all new Nooga Radio, noogaradio.com here on 92.7 FM. Jumping over to the NFL because I want to know what it is that the San Francisco 49ers were thinking when they gave Jimmy Garoppolo the gigantic contract that they decided to give Jimmy Garoppolo, who is about to make $23.6 million for the 2018 season. He actually has a bonus that's going to kick in and become guaranteed money later in March. And it's somewhat crazy. Right? He's guaranteed for 7 years. He's going to make all of this money. And Jimmy Garoppolo's played, 7 games? And I'm not saying that the guy's not talented, because you go watch the film on Jimmy Garoppolo, and I think that there's plenty to suggest that that's a talented guy. But he's not without his flaws. And I don't know how much money I'm willing to give a guy with his flaws, specifically his footwork. Jimmy Garoppolo's footwork is terrible. The mental aspect of the game, he's got. He's good. He understands what he's looking at. He can go read through a defense. He makes plays that really do remind you of the way that Tom Brady sees the field. Like, you can understand why it is that the Patriots love that guy and have trouble giving him up. But his footwork is awful. And it actually causes him to miss throws that mentally he's made the right read and he's making the right throw, but he doesn't plant his feet well, and then the ball is overthrown or underthrown horribly. I don't know if you give that level of money to that guy. And there's something that's happening in the NFL, and we're starting to see it. People are going to have to start cutting back on what they are willing to pay quarterbacks, unless you have a game-changing guy. You cannot be paying these above average and slightly above average quarterbacks the hundreds of millions of dollars over 5, 6, 7 years that they're making. It's madness, and you can't continue it because your team isn't sustained by it. And I look no further, by the way, than the Detroit Lions, and I love Matthew Stafford to death. He is an amazing quarterback, and quite frankly, one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch in the league. And I'm not even kidding. If there is a slate of games on and the Lions are playing, I might sit down and watch Matthew Stafford play. He's fun. He's absolutely fun. But that doesn't change the fact that the Lions are missing solid wide receivers. They've got solid guys, but they don't have anybody great. It would be nice to have someone great. They don't have a great offensive line. It's okay. The running game oscillates between decent and non-existent, and their defense is porous and bad. And that's why they can't compete in the NFC North, even though the NFC North last year included not Aaron Rodgers because he got injured, and included the Bears, who were terrible because they're the Bears. You couldn't compete in that division? Why not? You've got a quarterback that you've made the highest paid quarterback in the league at the time that you paid him. Oh, yeah. Because you don't have enough money to give yourself a defense, an offensive line, a running game, and any high-level wide receivers. I like Golden Tate, but Golden Tate is not the best receiver in the league. Like, if you really, 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 really wanted to give your offense a punch, you'd lock in Matthew Stafford, and then you try and get him a wideout that could change the game. Now, obviously, they used to have Megatron, but they don't have him anymore, and he's been gone long enough that the idea of replacing him with somebody had to have occurred to somebody in that front office, you would think. Right? I don't know if the 49ers made the right call here. Obviously, they were 1-10 without Garoppolo, and Garoppolo won 5 games for them last year. So I think you take the risk, but it's going to be harder and harder to take that risk. It is. There's no two ways about it. That if you sign the quarterback that might be the franchise guy, he might sink the rest of your franchise, right? Like, and me and my brother talked about this a little bit last week with LeBron James. And having LeBron James on your team is great because you've got LeBron, but it's also not great because LeBron is a diva. He's going to ask for a maximum contract. He's high maintenance. He's aging, and he's a complete totalitarian and will take over your team, possibly undermine your coach and your GM. That is the kind of guy that you're getting if you get LeBron James, and you still have to do it because he's LeBron. It's the same thing in the NFL with the franchise quarterback. You get a franchise quarterback, it means that you're going to have to back up the Brinks truck, pay him boatloads of money that probably you do not have, and then there is no money left on the rest of your roster to have a good team. And I wonder if that does not undermine your position in a sort of way if the whole point of paying the franchise quarterback was to have a chance to compete, and the franchise quarterback costs you your chance to compete. Where do you stop overpaying a lot of these guys? Now, I see with the Redskins what's happening. It's a little bit, some teams are willing to take average guys and gamble on average guys. And I'm not saying that Alex Smith is an average guy, but they rather go with Alex Smith, who is basically an older version of Kirk Cousins. I don't see Alex Smith doing anything that's overwhelming. He's not going to change the game. He's not going to change the team, but he's going to do a lot of really good things. He's going to manage the game for the most part and then make big plays, which is what they were already doing with Kirk Cousins. But Kirk Cousins was asking for a lot more money than Alex Smith was going to be paid. So they traded for Alex Smith. And the Redskins are able to do this because they're a terrible organization and they don't care what their fans think. Most organizations have to be beholden to their fans. The Redskins actually don't have to because they don't care about us, right? Like, they're just not at all interested in what we think or feel about any decisions that they make. They haven't won a Super Bowl in about 25 years. And at this point, who's keeping count? So they're not worried about what their fans think, right? I'm a Redskins fan. I feel like I speak for all of us. They don't care. But they actually don't care enough to be able to gamble on not overpaying a guy like Kirk Cousins, who is going to be overpaid by somebody this summer. Someone's going to overpay that guy. And if they overpay him and can't give him receivers, a running game, offensive line, and a defense, they're going to find that Kirk Cousins is not that great. Right? Because Kirk Cousins is a normal person. And I've already explained this theory to you. Most quarterbacks that are competent in the NFL are normal people. If you give them talent, they can give you wins. There are some quarterbacks that are extraordinary. They are beyond where everyone else is. Tom Brady, Drew Brees, when Peyton Manning was playing. Peyton Manning, Dan Marino. Aaron Rodgers is that kind of guy. Those people are extraordinary. It doesn't matter what the team is made out of. They can get you wins, even if the team is bad. But we're not overpaying those guys, right? From what I understand, Tom Brady does not make that much money. Drew Brees was at one point the highest paid quarterback in the league. He's not even close now. Like, the extraordinary guys are not the guys that are out there getting paid the most money. It's a lot of these average, normal guys. And that guy, I can't justify giving $23.6 million to. But there you go. Jimmy Garoppolo's getting it. And the 49ers are doing this, and I know that they don't realize that they're doing this, but they are absolutely inflating the quarterback market, which means that, I mean, basically, when you pay a guy that's played roughly 8 games, he's played half of an NFL season's worth of games. When you pay a guy that much money, the price of the other quarterbacks that are pretty decent, they go up, right? It's the Tiger Woods effect in a lot of ways, that the leader in the clubhouse sort of raises the pay of everybody else. For instance, once Tiger Woods started winning like major after major after major, and all the money started going to the PGA, everybody else in the PGA started getting paid a lot. Like, golfers get paid now way more, even if you adjust for inflation, way more than they used to before Tiger Woods. Right? Like that game became more of the spectator sport than it was, right? Like, people that love golf will just sit down and watch golf and just love it. But there was a subset of people that were sitting down and watching golf just to watch Tiger, not because they love golf necessarily, right? And that is, in fact, how I got into golf, is because I sat down to watch Tiger. And then even after Tiger wasn't good, what I ended up finding about myself was, oh, I just like golf. Yeah, that game's fun. The price goes up when the lead guy is making just tons and tons of money. And the lead guy is Jimmy Garoppolo, who might be good. Like, I think the jury's still out on Jimmy G. Right? I mean, look, it is. The jury's still out on the guy. I look at it and I go, wow, we are talking about Jimmy Garoppolo like he is a household name. Right? He's just a common commodity in the NFL, and he has not played half a season's worth of football ever in this league. Never. You're listening to all new Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com. Clutch with Keon Rose. I don't want to jump ahead of the gun here, but I got a few other things on the slate that I'd like to talk about, right? I want to talk about Tennessee, and I want to talk about Philip Fulmer, because Philip Fulmer has dictated what his goal is at the University of Tennessee, right? And Rick Barnes' job is essentially a very safe job, because first off, he's coaching well, and Tennessee basketball looks good. It looks fantastic. And I think that both the men and women's team, by the way, the women's team coached by Holly Warlick, they're doing fantastically. But I also think that the basketball coaches are safe because Philip Fulmer, his dictation as to what it is that he is at Tennessee to do is to fix football. That is what he wants to do. That is why he is here. Philip Fulmer is not here for any other reasons other than to fix football. And seeing as how he essentially Game of Thrones his way into that job, I would imagine so. So we'll get into that a little bit later. Obviously, I'm going to give you, it's Valentine's Day. I'm going to give you something that I love about every SEC school, except one. I tried really hard to think about something that I liked about them. I just hate them too much. I can't do it. I reach inside my soul and find one nice thing to say about these people. I absolutely could not do it, but I've got a ton of nice things to say about Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, Missouri. Yeah, even Missouri. Sam Jordan's Razorbacks, his Arkansas Razorbacks, LSU. I've got nice things to say about all of them. Who is off the list? So you'll just have to stick around and find out. You're listening to All New Nooga Radio. Clutch with Keon Rose here on 92.7 FM. I also want to talk about the International Olympic Committee. There are no NHL players in the Olympics, and it's very easy to blame the NHL, which I have done on the show many times. I do blame the NHL. I still blame the NHL, but it's not just the NHL's fault, right? I want to know why there are not NHL players in the Olympics. I think I have an answer. I'd love to share this answer with you and figure out what it is exactly that you think, because this is kind of an egregious thing when you think about it. You're listening to All New Nooga Radio at NoogaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. Let's get Keon Rose next.
Tennessee Valley's news talk leader, Nooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. Chattanooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM's news now.
The Chattanooga City Council is set to vote on a resolution to create a memorial to the fallen five. The resolution put forth by the mayor's office authorizes a contract with Arts Norman Lee and Shane Albritton. The resolution is on the council agenda for next Tuesday. The memorial will be located at the Tennessee River Park. A grand jury finds the county jail may be insecure. The grand jury's report revealed serious safety and security concerns. The prison guard to prisoner ratio is so skewed that there are fears that inmates could take over an entire cell block and the guards won't be able to do anything about it. Sheriff Hammond says this isn't just an issue in Hamilton County, it's a problem all across the state of Tennessee. Good flu news. Erlanger saw a slight drop in cases. Val St. John for Nooga Radio. News Talk 92.7 News Now.
Chattanooga Morning News with Russ and Val, weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m. on Nooga Radio, 92.7 FM.
Oh man, rush. I've got to get stuff for the party. Where can I go? It's going to give me a wide selection of beer, wines, and spirits. Oh, I got it. I'll go to Harry's Wine and Spirits to Go Mountain. Maybe East Brainerd Wine and Spirits in East Brainerd. I could go to Riley's Wines and Spirits in Hickson. Wow, look at a huge selection in here. Look at these great prices. Amazing. Oh yeah, I'm going to find something for my lady too. I'm going to make this party a success.
Make your party a success when you stop in at Harry's Wine and Spirits in Signal Mountain, East Brainerd Wine and Spirits in East Brainerd, and Riley's Wine and Spirits in Hickston. An automated nuclear missile defense system has suddenly entered into launch mode, and you are the only one who can stop it. Escape Experience Chattanooga. Your team has just been infected with a deadly virus. Your only hope there in an abandoned farmhouse. Escape Experience Chattanooga. Handcuffed in a maximum security prison, you have an hour to flee. Escape Experience Chattanooga. These escape scenarios and more at Chattanooga's best escape room game and team building platform. Call now. Slots are limited. Register online at escapeexperience.com/Chattanooga. Escape Experience Chattanooga.
If your computer is running slow, if you have viruses, if someone called you asking to get into your computer, just say no. If a screen pops up on your computer saying your data is going to be deleted and you have to call this number, don't call it. You need to call Affordable Computers. You wouldn't invite a stranger to come into your house to look at all your books and records. So why would you invite someone to look at your records on your computer? With one wrong click of the mouse, you could be allowing access into your entire system. At Affordable Computers, we can stop them now. Don't be fooled by scammers and pop-ups that tell you you must call this number or your hard drive is going to be deleted. You need to call Affordable Computers. Call Affordable Computers now. Microsoft is never going to call you. Microsoft is never going to ask you to call them. If you see that on your screen, you are being scammed. Stop it. Call Affordable Computers. 423-499-1975. That's 423-499-1975. In Fort Oglethorpe, call 706-858-5888. That's 706-858-5888. Affordable Computers.
95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM.
Expect fair to partly cloudy skies to continue through your nighttime. Cold overnight, lows mid and upper 20s. Now for your Wednesday, look for some sunshine with a breeze out of the north, though. Light cold highs up around 40 with more mainly dry and cold weather expected through Friday. Celebrate the new year with Dixieland Fireworks, locally owned with the largest selection around. A Black Cat dealer with the lowest prices in Dixieland Fireworks, just off I-75 on Ringgold Road, East Ridge. And I'm Sworn Team 12, Chief Meteorologist Patrick Core.
Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7. Sean Hannity, 25,000 watts on digital FM 95.3 HD4. CBS Radio News, NASCAR, Bloomberg Markets, David Tulis, streaming strong at Noogaradio.com. Live on YouTube and Facebook. Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7. Chattanooga Radio.
You're listening to all new Nooga Radio and Noogaradio.com here on 92.7 FM. Lunch with Keon Rose. Just trying to have some fun. The Olympics are going on. And the only sport that I have managed to watch, despite the fact that the snowboarding already happened and Shaun White won gold again, unsurprisingly. A lot of these sports, I think luge is already happening. I've only watched curling so far. I watched a little bit of figure skating, but as always, I didn't know what I was looking at. And here's the thing with figure skating that blows me away about figure skating. Americans only care about figure skating once every 4 years. And people out of the blue just become professionals on figure skating in a way that doesn't make any sense. Oh, really? Like you've been following this all the 4 years in between? For real? I don't believe you. I actually don't believe you. I was listening to a local news broadcast, not here in Chattanooga. I went out of town to Huntsville over the weekend because I had to get my youngest brother, Kate, who was an alum of this show, by the way. I had to get my youngest brother his computer back. He's in college, and he left his computer at my house. So I had to drive down to Huntsville and get him his computer. And I was listening to the local Huntsville broadcast, and there was one of the anchors. She was complaining that, I want to say it was, I forget which team it was, that the U.S. finished bronze in one of the figure skating events. And the gold and silver winning teams, some of their skaters fell during their performances, but their performances were technically more difficult. And so they ended up winning anyway. And the anchor was just going, but they fell. Like, well, okay, but obviously there is some factor that accounts for when you do something harder. If you fall, you can still win. When did that woman become an expert on figure skating? Everyone does this every year, every Olympics. It's unbelievable. It's the thing that I see always happen with the Olympics and the World Cup. Americans don't watch soccer most of the time. So you should watch Chattanooga FC. They're the local team. You can just go right there. They play at Finley Stadium. Go watch them play. Learn how soccer works. It's an exciting sport. But most Americans actually don't watch soccer most of the time, except for when the World Cup shows are around. All of a sudden, the patriotism rises up, and everyone becomes a soccer expert. I don't know how that happens. How does that happen? Why does that happen? It's the most annoying thing about all of these seasonal sports. We'll talk about the Olympics in a second. But I do want to talk about my secret Valentine, the SEC, maybe my not so secret Valentine, SEC football. Because I moved to the South, to the deep South, I guess, to Tennessee here in 2008, and I've been here ever since. I was not a big fan of SEC football when I first got here because I grew up in large part in Texas, and that's Big 12 country, and so I love Big 12 football. But SEC football has grown on me since I have been here. And so I have a thing to say about a nice thing to say about every SEC football team because it is Valentine's Day, something I love. And by the way, this was not my idea. I stole this idea shamelessly from Connor O'Gara over at Saturday Down South, but it was a really good idea. And it is Valentine's Day, so I'll just go ahead and run with it. But I'm not going to use his things that he loves. I'm going to have my own things that I love. At Alabama, one of the things that I love about Alabama is how mad people get about Alabama. Everybody hates Alabama. There's something about the team that everybody hates that I absolutely enjoy. Right? Maybe I just like villains. And you like villains too. Who was everybody's favorite character in The Dark Knight? Was it not the Joker? It was the Joker. Everybody likes villains, except for in sports. All of a sudden, we can't stand villains. But I like that everybody hates Alabama. And I like that Alabama just likes that everybody hates them. I also generally like a good Nick Saban press conference freakout. It's about the most fun you'll have with a coach answering questions. Coaches answer questions generally boringly. Not all of them, right? We've had Coach Hayden Clark here of the Chattanooga Eagles of the GDFL. Probably my favorite coach interview of all time because he's very honest. Like, he'll just answer the questions the way that you ask them, and he's not trying to hide from things. He'll just answer it. Maybe not in a way to get into too much trouble, but he'll answer your questions honestly, which I do appreciate. So those are the things that I like about Alabama. About Arkansas, hey man, I like your coaching hire. Chad Morris is going to do great things over at Arkansas. I really believe that their recruiting is going to get a whole lot better. I think that was part of the issue with Brett Bielema was Brett Bielema was, for some reason, not able to recruit defensive players very well. But Arkansas scored a bunch of points, but they never defended anybody. And if they beat you, it was in a shootout. And I don't know why that is, because wasn't, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but wasn't Brett Bielema a defensive coach when he was up at Wisconsin? Because I thought he was. But they were never good at defense his entire time there. So they're already offensively overpowered. I think Chad Morris is a very good coach, and I also think that Chad Morris is a great recruiter. So I think that that's going to help Arkansas a lot. Auburn, what I love about Auburn is Gus Malzahn and his constant hot seat situation, right? We are always talking about whether or not Gus Malzahn is going to be fired, and Gus Malzahn never gets fired. Gus Malzahn and the topic of whether or not he's going to be fired has fueled this show for the greater part of the last 3 years. And he's never been fired. I mean, if you can actually believe that. Gus Malzahn has not actually ever been fired. It is one of the more perplexing things that I've ever seen in my whole life. Gus Malzahn has been mere games away from being fired. I keep saying this. I know it's the dead horse that I beat, but 2 years ago, Gus Malzahn loses to LSU, and he doesn't have a job. And they almost did lose to LSU, and there was a last-second call that got overturned, and then Auburn ended up winning a game that they thought that they lost. And Les Miles of LSU, he got fired instead. I mean, he was one game away, one call away from not having a job. Gus Malzahn is the single most entertaining coach in the SEC, just based purely on his circumstances that he can never seem to fix. It's kind of crazy. The thing that I love about Florida is that even though Florida is supposed to always be great, their defense actually is great, right? Florida's offense has been disappointing forever. They haven't had a quarterback worth watching since Tim Tebow. But Florida on defense, hey, man, don't mess with Florida on defense. The Gators will lock you out. It's pretty amazing. Georgia, I like Jake Fromm. I want to see what year 2 Jake Fromm looks like. Because Jake Fromm, when they started to give him more responsibility in the offensive game, was kind of a beast. I liked watching him play. I liked watching him play before, but I mean, you'd have some stat lines from Jake Fromm that where he was 6 of 9 passing for a touchdown and 98 yards. Like, that's not a great stat line. It's not a bad stat line, but that's the stat line of a guy that's just managing the game. But when they actually gave him the responsibilities, that guy can ball. And I loved everything that I saw from him, especially in that Oklahoma bowl game. That is probably, I don't know if that was my favorite bowl game of bowl season, but it was one of them. One of the best Rose Bowls we probably ever had. Not the best, obviously. It's Texas and USC, but one of the best. Kentucky. I like Kentucky's offense. Kentucky could put up points, man. Kentucky is, I can't think of a team that gives you highs and lows quite like Kentucky, right? It's unfortunate that their defense isn't great because their offense is brilliant. And for years now, it's been brilliant. And they were one of the dark horses that could have won the SEC East. And quite frankly, almost did, right? Dropped a couple of games there near the end of the season that they probably shouldn't have, but it was an amazing season last year. And I'm looking forward to seeing where Kentucky goes from there. LSU, I need LSU to find a quarterback offensively, because LSU I love for the same reason that I love Florida. Defensively, LSU has never had problems. They lock you out. They're hard to score on. They always compete. They can't score points on offense. I don't know why. There is no good reason why. Ed Orgeron needs to fix it. He hasn't. He had Matt Canada in there. We'll see if these problems get worked out. But first off, they've got to recruit a quarterback. I mean, that if you can't fix that problem, you're never going to fix LSU. It's the one problem that they absolutely have. Right? Mississippi State, I actually love for the reason that I don't know where they go from here. Right? You had Dan Mullen as your head coach. Dan Mullen is my favorite coach in the SEC, just in terms of what he is capable of doing, how he develops talent and players. But Mississippi State they're going to have to go now with Joe Moorhead, and we'll see exactly what their offense looks like from here, what their team looks like from here. They're not a place that gets a lot of recruits very easily. I like the potential of Mississippi State. Missouri, we got Drew Lock. Drew Lock is, at this point, my favorite SEC quarterback. He is amazing. And I think he's an NFL caliber, talented guy, right? He started the beginning of last season throwing 7 touchdowns in 1 game, and his ball location is amazing. The way that he reads defenses are amazing. Now, the offense is a spread attack. It's very simple. I think that if he does go to the NFL, that's going to be a tough transition for him, but he's staying in college for 1 more year. If I were him, I would have left early, take the money and run. But no, I think he's confident in his ability to still be able to make it to an NFL roster and maybe even be a high-level draft pick. And who knows, if he develops any more, we're looking at a very dangerous guy and a guy that could go out and represent the SEC in the NFL at the quarterback position, adding yet another one of those guys to those ranks. Ole Miss, to me, I thought that Ole Miss showed a lot of potential last year. I actually didn't think that they were going to be as good as they were. They did struggle a lot, but they were also better than I thought they would be. They've got a lot of upside. I love their upside. I think that Ole Miss can go places after the Hugh Freeze debacle, after the NCAA sanctions. I think that they have a lot of room for growth and improvement. South Carolina, I love Will Muschamp. His style, man. He's gotten more out of South Carolina than I anticipated that he would this soon. Right? This is his 2nd year in, and at the end of his 2nd year in, South Carolina's been able to compete. I think they still need to fill some holes offensively, and their secondary could use some work, but they are a very well-rounded team, and they pretty much beat all the people on their schedule they're supposed to beat. They need to start punching above their weight class, though, if they want to try and dominate the SEC East, which, when you've got Georgia being the way that they are, that's going to be a tough one. Tennessee, I'm really excited about Jeremy Pruitt, and I'm really excited about what he's going to do. But the thing that I love about Tennessee is actually Philip Fulmer and his insistence on putting football first. He is trying to fix Tennessee football. That is what Tennessee is about. I know that Tennessee is also good at basketball. I know that Rick Barnes has done well. I know that Holly Warlick has done well. But being the guy that is Philip Fulmer is the last coach that won a national title at Tennessee. This is hugely important to him, and he's working on fixing it. And he also saved you from having Greg Schiano as your head coach, which you're welcome, Tennessee fans. I don't know if you all went home immediately and opened up whatever notebook paper you had and wrote just a very loving letter to Philip Fulmer, but you should probably go do that now and say thank you if you haven't already. Greg Schiano was almost the head coach of your football team. Texas A&M. I don't like them. No nice things to say about Texas A&M. I'm a Longhorn fan. I'm sorry. Vanderbilt. The thing that I like about Vanderbilt, and I know that this is from the O'Connor piece, but it is true. Jason Tarver is coming in to be the defensive coordinator at Vanderbilt, which means that Derek Mason doesn't have to be his own defensive coordinator, and nobody really does that, right? Like Mike Zimmer does it in the NFL very well, but Nick Saban doesn't call his own defense. Kirby Smart doesn't call his own defense. Great defensive minds. You're a head coach. You have a lot to focus on, right? You are the administrator of the whole team. If you give yourself play calling abilities, what you're doing is making life very, very difficult for yourself, because now you're giving yourself another responsibility on top of managing all 3 phases of the game and all the extra added responsibility the coaches have, especially recruiting if you're talking about college. It's hugely important that you give yourself a lighter workload if you can. So Jason Tarver is going to be helpful for Vanderbilt, who is the team that already has a pretty stout defense and a pretty good history of playing solid defense under Derek Mason. You're listening to All New Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com, Clutch with Keon Rose, here on 92.7 FM. The International Olympic Committee is the reason why we don't have NHL players in the Olympics, which is the reason why I watch hockey in the Olympics, is to watch the guys that I recognize. It's sort of like an all-star game or an all-star tournament featuring all the best players from a number of different countries. And the International Olympic Committee does not want to pay players. The NHL Players Association wants the guys to get paid, right? And the NHL is backing the Players Association. They want guys to get paid. The International Olympic Committee actually covers housing and insurance for the players, but they do the sort of thing that the NCAA does with college athletes, where they just say that college athletes should just be happy to play college sports because like they don't offer any really good reasons why. They just go, yeah, no, just be happy about it. Yeah. That's what the Olympic Committee does. They basically say you should be proud to represent your country, and that's why you should be happy to be in the Olympics, because you get to represent your country. We're not paying anybody. And so they actually rescinded covering housing in the negotiations. It actually took a turn for the worse, and they won't even cover housing anymore. So the NHL players are mad, and they blame the NHL, which means they blame Gary Bettman, which, by the way, is part of the job of a commissioner in sports, is that everybody hates you. I mean, look at Roger Goodell. We all hate him. And why? Because you're the face of every stupid thing that happens in the league, right? It's your fault. It may not necessarily be your fault, but we have to blame you because you're the guy that's the face of it, right? It's the same thing with any quarterback. We blame quarterbacks when their offenses struggle. Maybe it could be that you have terrible receivers or a bad offensive line, but we always blame quarterbacks, and we will blame Roger Goodell, and we will blame Gary Bettman when stupid things happen. And I think that there is a certain level of blame that Gary Bettman, as the commissioner of the NHL, does hold for this particular sequence of events. But what I will say is this: I wouldn't hold Gary Bettman responsible for this entirely. There's a small amount of blame to the NHL for this, in that when you were negotiating, you somehow managed to get less than what you originally had. That seems, there's incompetence around there somewhere. But where I am personally offended is that the Olympic Committee doesn't want to pay athletes, right? And that seems to me to be a little bit crazy, and it seems to me to be very, very unfair, especially since you have a number of NHL players from all over the world. You've got Russians, and you've got people from Denmark and Finland and Canada and the US. You've got Olympic athletes all over the place, and you won't cover their costs, and you won't even cover the cost of their housing. Absolutely. How stingy and cheap can you possibly be? And then that's not even covering the other issue, which is that when the Olympics show up in your town, what they sell to you is the idea that economically they are good for your town. When every economist and every report that every economist has written for the last 15 years has said, when the Olympics show up in your city, you are financially worse off than before they came, right? And so Pyeongchang, South Korea, they're going to be economically worse off than when before the Olympics got there. That is problematic. It is. I mean, there is a certain level of scamishness to what the International Olympic Committee is doing and what it does. And you can see it in their desire to not pay players, the pageantry, and just, hey, isn't it great to wear your country's uniform and raise your flag? Isn't that great? And that is a great feeling, I imagine. But you can pay them too. It's not like the International Olympic Committee is short of money, right? And the payment, it wouldn't be a full payment, but it would be so that the NHL owners don't have to cover a number of other costs. But I still would like to see NHL players in the Olympics. I think it's great for hockey. I think it's great for the sport. You know, my favorite player, because I'm a Washington Capitals fan, my favorite player is Alexander Ovechkin, and he's a Russian. And I sort of like that. Like your favorite players are now scattered all over the world, and you get to root for different guys for different reasons. I like that. I enjoy it. This is... it's egregious, is what it is. It's egregious. You're listening to All New Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com. Clutch with Keon Rose. I will give you one thing that I like about Texas A&M before all the A&M fans find me on Twitter, because they had found me on Twitter before. I actually pissed off a bunch of A&M fans last year, and that wasn't fun. But I like Jimbo Fisher. The Jimbo Fisher hire was a good hire. I don't know if it makes you much better, and I don't know if it makes you able to beat Nick Saban, which is what Texas A&M has always wanted, because they are a very good football team and they have the talent, especially at quarterback this year, to probably compete at a higher level than they were under Kevin Sumlin. Maybe Jimbo Fisher pushes you over the top. We'll find out how good Jimbo Fisher really is for this football team, but I like the hire. I love the hire a lot. I like the Jimbo Fisher hire. It's risky. It's gutsy. It may cost you way too much money, but I like it a lot. You're listening to all new Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com, 92.7 FM. Remember, folks, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Stay clutch, and I'll see you in 24 hours.
Truex Jr. is off the pace and he is headed to the pit lane. Elliott Powers around the outside. Michael McDowell pops the right front tire. Here's Martin Truex to the bottom. Blaney blocks him off too. Meanwhile, Chase Elliott went 4 wide on the back straightaway. They're side by side for the lead.
Hear it live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Nooga Radio, 92.7 FM, 95.3 HD4.
The voice of NASCAR.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM's news now.
High schoolers gunned down in Florida at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. Many were hospitalized, authorities calling it a mass casualty incident. A suspected shooter has been arrested. Chuck Fleischman reacting on Twitter, saying his thoughts and prayers are with the first responders and with the families of the victims. The Economy Inn was padlocked Wednesday, the DA calling it a public nuisance. Occupants were told to pack their stuff and get out. This comes after multiple reports from local businesses and residents who complain of crime that seems to originate from the Economy Inn. The flu outbreak is shutting down school systems around the Cumberland Plateau. Grundy County closed down for the rest of the week, possibly until Tuesday. Students were already scheduled off for Professional Development Day, which has now been canceled, and Monday is a holiday, so they won't be there anyway. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News Talk 92.7, now.
Chattanooga Morning News with Russ and Val. Weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m. on Nooga Radio, 92.7 FM.
A few lingering showers will continue through your nighttime, tapering off late. Areas of fog could be locally dense, lows only to the upper 50s. For Thursday, lots of clouds, but a little drier, becoming breezy and much warmer for the afternoon. Highs of around 70 with more showers returning for Friday. Get ready for the second half of winter with Dodge City Ski Shop, featuring the largest selection of cold weather clothing around. From infants to adults in all shapes and sizes, they have it at Dodge City, East Brainerd Road, Chattanooga. And I'm 1412 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Moore.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader, Nooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.
Gold, 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 and more gold. And always buy American. At Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds, you'll always get better rates than the banks. We'll convert your